Hey everybody, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Cockings, and a pretty unique episode today.
That's right. Red Letter Media, the guys behind Mr. Plinkett, and a whole bunch of other great stuff. Also the review series, which in this case should have been preview instead of review.
Yes.
But anyway, they talk about movies, and just recently they actually came out with a idea for the new Picard show. And it was pretty interesting. So
and Mike Soclasa is a big Trek fan, and the other sort of
huge fan.
Look down on him on that, but it's part of the in-jokes. And in the video they say, you know, he was having this, like, he heard the Picard announcement because there's a Picard show, and he just had to make something, and so he started scribbling, and then loved it that much that they wanted to do a whole video on their channel.
So the show would be called Star Trek Galaxy. The series would open at the Picard family vineyard, the exact same sequence as seen in All Good Things, the final episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
First of all, I really like the fact that it starts off exactly where All Good Things was, with Picard in the vineyard and Geordi coming up, but no aromatic syndrome. It'd be a real homage to what had come before, so that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, to refilm it and them actually look that old and yet still so normal. Because they pointed out they wanted to include, you know, Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and LeVar Burton, who was also in that scene. And they pointed out again, he's also aged very similar to how they up-aged him in the show, and still a great actor. So those two would be two of the leads, and bring in Leah Brahm, who'd be the wife of Geordi LaForge, who, as we all know, was in the show a couple of times as holograms and then as a real character. And he fancied her, and she was the designer, one of the designers of the Galaxy class. And that all comes into play.
So Geordi LaForge shows up to talk to now retired Admiral Picard about reinstating him for a brief mission. The famed USS Galaxy, the namesake for the ship class, had vanished at the end of the Dominion War and was listed MIA, has now mysteriously resurfaced somewhere strange. The ship is crewless and drifting somewhere near the Gamma Quadrant, possibly near the territory of a new Federation enemy. Geordi, along with his wife, Dr. Leah Brahms, and possibly their children, Alondra, Brett, and Sydney, all mentioned in All Good Things, are traveling to the derelict ship to investigate.
I mean, she designed the Galaxy, and he obviously worked on the flagship for years, so they have perfect knowledge of the ship.
Yeah, he wants to bring Picard in because he's an admiral. He's a revered admiral. He's done a lot in his career. Plus, who knows the Galaxy class better than Picard? I mean, it was his baby for quite a long time. So
this is not like a top tier mission, is the vibe they were giving. But LaForge knows something's up. They say it's drifting near the Gamma Quadrant, crewless, and pretty damaged. So what happened to it? And the only captain that goes on this mission is a young, youthful captain that doesn't like the mission. And Geordi's like, this captain, I'd rather have someone I can actually trust and it'll do the mission properly. So they bring Picard back, and like you say, they've got real experience.
I actually like this idea. You get the Galaxy class back, but you make it a little bit run down. It's been beat up.
Oh yeah,
it's been through some shit.
That's the different angle that, of course, they won't take. They're going to want sleek sets, holographic projections.
You get that ship back, but it also doesn't have to feel the same, because at the time in TNG, the Galaxy class, it's a fucking luxury cruise ship. But you get the rundown version of that now. So it's still the same ship, but like the inside, it's like beat up, wires are hanging down, panels are missing.
If they set its disappearance a few years later, it could be a slightly refitted version, which means it could look different, have a slightly new, unique bridge design, new LCARs, you don't know where those technology things shift. And that'd be more interesting, I think, because you could still have a newer look, but still be in the bones of the original.
one of the other things that they had talked about is perhaps Geordi's children coming on board, because
They did say that maybe Geordi brings a training officer that he can teach. Maybe it's his own son. That'd be nice. And then two younger kids to create sort of a family dynamic as well. So you've got Leah, the three kids, and Geordi, which is a little bit different. You haven't sort of had a family feel on one of these ships before, especially with the bad things that are going to happen or they propose in the story. And I did want to also make note that they called it out near the second half, but they were saying how Picard would be retired and he's an old captain, and that the cadets wouldn't look up to him.
And then the veteran there, Picard, he's got to be in charge, but he's really old, and are these young kids going to trust this old man?
That's one of the selling points of the show.
Yeah.
Is essentially the USS Galaxy is a metaphor for Picard himself, a relic from another era.
And Rich Evans, who's the other half of this video, was very much like, he's an old Picard, just because Patrick Stewart is 79, or around that. And I kept thinking, and they did mention it later on, Bones McCoy was 137, still an active admiral, and still looked fine. Old but fine, still functioning, still got his marbles. So Picard being 70, he's got 3 or 4 decades still in the service. The fact he's retired is a... They didn't say this in the story in his pitch, but it must be a reason rather than an age thing, because Picard is not old in the story, and I certainly after 25 years these officers wouldn't look down upon him because he's old. They would say, "My God, it's Admiral Picard." He wouldn't be old, he'd be middle-aged from the modern era of how old people live in Trek. Middle-aged.
Yeah, that's been brought up in the comments, but I kind of rebuke that as saying every time I see an older admiral come on board any of the ships, you're always suspicious of their motives, because it turns out most of the time in Star Trek that the admirals are kind of shifty and...
But not Picard.
But he's been out of the service for a while, so I think the younger captain who...
But that's what doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would he be? I mean, there's actually be a reason for him to be out of the service. He wouldn't have retired for the sake of it. And they said there's an interesting behind-the-scenes featurette for Nemesis where they said Picard probably regrets missing out on a family, and so it would be nice if he left the service to have his family. And they mentioned that maybe the wife died, and that could be Beverly Crusher. So that would be nice if he left everything to have his second life with a family, and then they died. That would be a wonderfully dark, well, horribly dark, really tragic thing.
Yeah.
So you need a real reason to leave the service 30, 40 years early.
But I can see a younger captain not trusting him after being out of the service for a while, and why are they bringing him back? Don't they trust me?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And there kind of be some tension there. I think that would work out phenomenally.
The barely working Galaxy-class ship finds itself in a combat situation brought on by the young, inexperienced captain, which ultimately gets him killed. Picard is then forced to take command of the ship.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they could be near a new enemy or, some kind of new threat that we can introduce something new into the universe without rehashing old stuff.
And it doesn't even have to be, the next biggest thing, because this ship is 30 years old. It can be a middle of the range. Like Geordi can say, God, these Norscan wannabes are powerful, but not really strong enough against our big ships. Yeah, this is an old ship. They're powerful enough, so that'd be nicely like not the biggest threat, but to us it is a big threat, which is a nice contextual thing. So if they ever do get saved, it's fine. Which is one thing they brought up. If they're now stuck in the Gamma Quadrant or near the Gamma Quadrant, they said, what is the real story beyond this one episode? Because they wanted a episode upon episode storyline, but obviously a season-wide arc.
You don't want them to get stuck. Like, oh, we're stuck in the Gamma Quadrant on the USS Galaxy. We've got to take it back to the Alpha Quadrant, to the Federation, because then you have the same premise as Voyager. You need some sort of thing that keeps them on board it and keeps other people away from it, but also allows you to do standalone episodes.
And you've got to think there's a big season arc, so you need a season arc for this sort of show.
And I like the idea that he had of a season arc being an overarching science mystery. So it's a science, and they've got to solve this problem, as opposed to always being up against a big bad guy or lots of weapons. I thought that was a fantastic idea, and that's what Star Trek needs and is missing to be Star Trek. And he also wanted standalone episodes, which I think are also greatly important for character development.
But what did you think about them actually being trapped on the ship? So we saw the main plot is the first bit of the plot is this. So what do you think of the plot up to that point then? This galaxy appearing from nowhere, no crew, very much like the Defiant from TOS.
Oh yeah, exactly. I thought that was amazing. It's a great idea for a plot. I was, when I saw this, I was like really on board with their idea, because it would be very intriguing to see the old stuff yet slightly newer. Like you said, add new LCARs, add some updates, and a clever way to establish the Galaxy class, the USS Galaxy, and have it called Star Trek Galaxy, which is a gripping name for a Star Trek series. So
yeah, it continues the convention of naming the show after the ship, but actually Galaxy, straight away the name is exploration, the name is what Trek should be, and yet you'll see the name recognition of a Galaxy class of, it's a really good title. Well, this is where I came to a problem I had with it.
Perhaps even the warp drive is so critically damaged that they can only travel at impulse through one dangerous situation after another. This would force Picard to use his tried and true diplomacy and wit to help them all survive and solve whatever mystery is at hand.
So they got to go impulse through dangerous territories. And I was thinking, yeah, that's not practical, because it would take you like weeks to get through days to get through a system, and any ship can follow you. I mean, you saw how Last Jedi happened. At impulse, you just get followed. Like, you can't escape them. So I thought, you can't really do that to it. I mean, you can like say we're down to warp like 1, really break it. You know, they got one dilithium crystal left, like Stargazer, the Hathaway, I think it was. Like we can do this, and this is it. Which should work fine.
It could be too that when the other ship, commanded by the young captain, got destroyed, the galaxy itself got flung either back to where it was missing for all those years, like an elastic band snapped back there, which could be a different time. So there is no Starfleet to come rescue them. They do still have warp. They have to find a way to get the ship back to their own time. That opens up so many possibilities. And like they said, just you can put in any kind of technobabble gobbledygook as long as it makes sense. You can explain things. And I like how they said that the ship was acting like a zipper, pulling this anomaly or whatever.
Well, I mean, go into detail. What do they say would be the overarching storyline then?
You have this old ship, right? And perhaps it went somewhere.
Yeah.
It went somewhere bad, and it came back almost like a Trojan horse.
Every now and then, Star Trek mentions like civilizations that used to exist like 30,000 years ago. Maybe you got one of those civilizations that got themselves caught in some kind of time anomaly. Or maybe they were trapped by the other civilization that's starting to break down. Every now and then, the hole to whatever pocket dimension they're stuck in opens up. And that's how the galaxy got stuck in there in the first place. And so then you can have the galaxy kind of like lost within these time anomalies. And that's why they can't just call for backup. They're popping in and out all over the place, maybe trying to find their way back.
Okay, so instead of distance like Voyager,
Yeah.
it's time.
Yes.
It could be that this is like the Preservers, an ancient civilization, an ancient race of beings that either caused the ship to be pulled through time, or they just run into them, and either back in time or in the future, it doesn't really matter. It would work either way, and just kind of get a new feel for the galaxy, and that would again pull in that galaxy vibe of the title into the show and really have a double meaning, which is really cool.
But I like that. I love the idea of having this old race that are using, you know, they're trying to get free. So it is a galaxy-wide threat, but it's a threat that is still imprisoned, is still, you know, whatever. And they don't know what's causing it, but it creates very galactic stakes while still keeping the stories very one ship. And because it's so far away, it becomes one crew. And because you got the kids, it becomes very personal. They even said we could bring in Reg Barclay's son, which I was happy to hear. Sam Barclay.
Sam Barclay.
Oh no.
Oh, great. Admiral Picard, Sam Barclay, at your service.
Yo, not what I expected.
Extremely competent, and
Because they specifically said, you know, you don't want to just bring back people for the sake of it. That's why I think actually bringing Picard and LeVar Burton, you know, back is a great choice as Geordi, because they're actually an interesting pair, both very functional in their work and both very independent. And you could bring like descendants of people back, and then reference other people.
You could even bring back Beverly Crusher in the form of a holodeck program.
Ooh,
if
yes.
Picard, if she had died,
Yep.
maybe he
Recordings of her,
visits the holodeck to kind of.
Yep.
I mean, anything's possible as far as that goes.
And obviously in the first episode you could have him on the phone to Riker on the Titan, and Troy's expecting her third child, and they're having a wonderful time. You know, the youngest one wants to be on the new Enterprise, and that's a little reference to the Enterprise, and then Data's on the Enterprise. You don't see it, but you reference it. And within one conversation, you could set up all the different ties. But really, it's not about the TNG cast; it's about this new thing. And I like that of having this galactic-wide threat, because you could, you know, if it is galactically wide, and if we're seeing the results of these tears in time, tears in space, damaging things, then back in the Alpha Quadrant, back where the other people are, you could start cutting back to them as the season goes on. And give a, like with Pathfinder and Voyager, give a slightly bigger context. That lets you bring in other actors, because it would be a missed opportunity if you didn't bring in other people, because they're all still here, they're all still kicking ass. I mean, you could even bring back Walter Koenig if you really wanted to. I mean, I think we'd all love to see him back as you know, not necessarily a live Chekhov, but as some, you know, a secret message from Admiral Chekhov of Section 31 cannot be opened till this day. You know,
Yeah.
kind of cool.
So yeah, cutting back to Earth and the regular timeline, as they kind of search for them and get clues. Maybe the Titan goes and investigates in the later seasons. One of the things I want to bring up, though, is the fact that Mike brought up the fact about the Millennium Falcon.
And you know what else annoys me too? They get the Millennium Falcon back in numerous incarnations, from brand new to the old rust bucket.
By they, you mean Star Wars fans. Okay.
we get Discovery, a spinning ship that travels on a network of spores.
Yes.
The Star Wars fans get the Millennium Falcon, a new version of it in Solo, whether you like Solo or not. A really beat up version of it in The Force Awakens, but it's still the Falcon. It's got a different radar dish.
Painstakingly recreated.
That's right.
Proudly recreated.
And we get the Discovery with the spinning saucer and stuff, which it's new, it's cool, a lot of people like it, but
It's not
it's not
starred.
TOS. It's not the reimagined, or it's not a faithful representation.
If you said it went through a post TNG refit to do things like the main hull's the same, but you update the escape pod hatches, maybe you add more detail to the phaser strips, you add interior windows to everything. Like, you could do really subtle, like give it a new armor layer, so it's like more of a tactical version.
Maybe change the nacelles slightly, or even the struts to the nacelles, shape them a little bit differently. That'd be fine as well.
Just a slight refit to sleek it out a little bit. But you still want it to look mostly the same, and that was sort of a golden age of Star Trek. That being such a success brought about the other spin-offs. And even as we saw in the last episode of Enterprise, those sets still look great when filmed to a modern standard. Okay, they weren't as detailed as they could have been, but they still look great design-wise.
I think that's a good thing if it's more science-based with your mystery.
An ancient race trying to transform the current state of the galaxy into what it used to be. Definitely where the ship is, whoever is on the ship needs to be on the ship. And they're all kind of like connected to it in some way. Where it's, like I said, Trojan horse. But room for standalone adventures, room for some good characterization, some good character stuff. And kind of slow it down a bit. Overarching science mystery, a couple of fun moments. We get to bring back a Galaxy-class ship, and Picard, his character gets, instead of man in tank top, ripping the spine of the Borg Queen out. He's back to being thoughtful Picard.
I thought it was great. There's a lot of detail, a lot of subtlety, a lot of nuance put into it, and it really paid fan service while at the same time doing something new. As they didn't really mention this, but as you said, updating the ship a little bit interior-wise, LCARS-wise, so it is different yet similar. I think would be fantastic, and would make people that complain that things need to be updated, make them happy, but still make the old Galaxy class fans happy as well. And then seeing them brainstorm at the end, coming up with, it's called Galaxy, and it's a galaxy-wide phenomenon that also ties into the name. It was brilliant. And you and I have had brainstorming sessions like that, where one idea sparks another, and it really comes together. And it was great to see those guys do that, because I watch them all the time. I love their stuff, and I know that he's a huge Star Trek fan. One thing I got to ask you is, what did you think of their decision to ignore the Hobus star explosion?
But Mike, we learned in Star Trek 2009 that a supernova apparently blew up the entire Romulan Empire, which presumably spanned multiple star systems. That black eye is forever there on the Prime timeline.
I'm going to ignore.
Yes! Common sense for the win!
We're ignoring all that.
And they did point out that this supernova destroyed decimated the Romulan Empire, but destroying just Romulus wouldn't kill the Empire. And since they had ample warning of it, they would all just leave. I mean, yes, their ceremonial home, but yeah, really, they've again not well written movies. But like I said, it's years after, so maybe season 10 that could be the new event. Or to be fair, what if this event causes the Hobus star and they get to stop it in the story?
Yeah, so I mean, it could be that the end of the series, the ship, the Galaxy that's now back, somehow as a result of all its travels through time or whatever, does stop the Hobus star from exploding, and then thereby nullifying all the J.J. Kelvin movies.
Because what if the Hobus star, which was caused by red matter, what if red matter is a part of the catalyst for, because we know that in All Good Things, and another little parallel thing, a thing in the future backfired through time to cause an event in the past and destroyed Earth. What if the red matter in the supernova thing, because they used a lot of red matter, what if that caused the initial breach, which then went back and started releasing the creatures, the enemies? They then managed to get the galaxy out of its time, pop it back up at a different time, which is obviously new in the events of time, because that couldn't have happened without Hobus in the future. And then because now they've set a new set of events happening, just like Enterprise, Zindi didn't originally happen, then they did happen, but they still managed to stop it. It changed the course of events. So then, because of this, Picard was able to stop the events and stop Hobus, and then now you've got one. So what if the first scene is actually the Hobus star explodes, a rip starts going through time, which is the last thing we saw in Prime, and then the camera starts to shake, goes to white, 2409, the Hobus star explodes, and it says 25 years earlier, and then we see Picard. Like, that'd be actually really kind of cool, and to undo it, would that actually undo, would that, because the red matter does cause Spock
it would undo the whole series of Star Trek Galaxy if they stopped it at the end.
No, you mean, well, no, it wouldn't stop, well, no, because the ship is still in the past. It would stop all the JJ movies, because then you wouldn't have 09. But then it did still happen once. That's the point. Time is still, because he's now moved from our timeline in Spock into the parallel timeline. He's there. Like, he can't disappear from an alternate timeline. Like, realities are separate. So it would happen once, but then we'd undo it, and then time would continue, and Romulus would not be destroyed.
Which would affect all the events of Star Trek Online, but that's okay. It's soft canon at best.
And it wouldn't necessarily disrespect those so much as allow it to create, allow 09 to create this new story. But because Picard had heroes and, saving lives, especially at the end of Nemesis, he was, in good with the Romulans, and obviously Spock is in good with Picard, and once reunification, you'd think saving Romulus would be a big deal. My pitch to them.
To add to it.
You're welcome, Mike and Rich.
I really like the fact that they wanted to bring back a thoughtful Picard as opposed to a fist fight, kind of Picard from the movies. So I think that'll be awesome. I really don't have a problem with their pitch.
Picard from 7-ish years of TV rather than 3-ish movies.
Like where the climax is a stirring speech and not a gunfight. Your race wants to live, but we're here too, and we've done great things. We've achieved peace in our time. Okay.
Star Trek Galaxy, everyone.
Thanks, Red Letter Media, for the great idea, great pitch, and we hope you like our ideas if you ever get to see it.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the video that we're talking about, guys, it's a link in the description below. Check it out. It's worth watching, and then you'll understand what the hell we've been babbling about for the past half hour.
Yeah, we didn't include everything, and there is humorous bits inside. It's a very well edited piece, so go watch it just for the fun factor, and hear them explain their idea way better than we did.
That's right.
Sorry.
Anyway, guys, so until next time, as always, click like, subscribe, do all that jazz. Don't forget to check out our social media as well. Visit us on Facebook, join the group. Lots to discuss there.
So until next time, guys, I am Commander Hungs.
And I'm Captain Foley.
See you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.